Welcome to our first session of What in the World Was the Bible Thinking? Did it get it right? Today's topic is slavery in the New Testament. 1 Peter chapter 2 verse 18 said, "Household slaves, submit to your masters with all reverence, not only to the good and gentle ones, but also to the cruel, for it brings favor if, because of a consciousness of God, someone endures grief from suffering unjustly." And so imagine how we feel when we read that. How in the world can Peter say, look, slaves, you need to submit to your masters? Now, on face value, that seems very wrong, because obviously God cannot support the evil and wickedness of slavery. But here's what happened in 1 Peter. Peter, number one, knew that the early church was a lot different from our church today, that it was very new, very fresh, not an all-powerful, very small group of believers compared to the Greek world. And when we think of slavery, we think about it in Western American terms that deal strictly with race and ethnicity. But in the New Testament, that type of slavery was dealt with across all kinds of ethnicities, all kinds of economic degrees. And so all these people were enslaved, and a lot of times it could be because they owed someone money, so therefore they became a slave. And some slaves in the New Testament had more rights. Some of them were doctors, etc. But we see that the Apostle Peter, he gives the slaves a way to make a difference. Now, they were not going to have an argument that was going to break down the entire economy of slavery in the Greek world, because the emperor, the government, the community leaders, everybody, it was deeply ingrained in all of these systems. And so Peter says, look, here's the way that you make a difference. You act in such a way that you live your life as a servant to your master, as an example of the gospel of Jesus Christ. And one day, God willing, this master would become, to see the light of Jesus, become a Christian. And guess what happens if his soul is transformed? Then he is obviously going to let his slaves and servants go. And so the Apostle Peter, he did not believe in a social gospel and a social construction, but he didn't see problems. He seen sins that had to be addressed with the gospel of Jesus. And so he knew the number one solution to everything was the gospel. So if the masters could see the grace of God in the servants' lives, their hearts would become changed. They would change, therefore let the servants go. And that the Apostle Peter was telling these servants and slaves to change things from the inside out. And that number two, that even though they might want to retaliate against the wickedness of a wicked master, a wicked slave owner, that you know what? God's justice is the only solution to every injustice. That all revenge does is make two wrongs that exacerbate the situation and causes more people to get hurt. And so he was asking these early believers in 1 Peter that, you know what? Trust God that he will fight on your behalf. You be faithful to God, and God will be faithful to you as he has always been. And so we see that this hope that man, Peter was saying, look, you are going to change people's lives through the gospel. And so what does that mean for us? Like, what that means is that the number one way that we affect people's lives, okay? It doesn't matter if it's a big social issue in this world, whatever it is, that the number one answer is the gospel of Jesus. That we can't treat symptoms, right? But we have to go to the heart of the issue, which is sin. And so we see that Peter, he wasn't encouraging slavery, but he was trying to find a way to destroy it from the inside out. So that is the approach that we have to take with every every subject in our personal life, political life, and realize that there's sin and that there's the gospel, and that the gospel can be applied to every single one of these situations. And so we find that Peter was saying, look, I do not support slavery. And the only way to make a difference is from the inside out. And we see a stark contrast between the slavery trade, which was created by man, that was full of wickedness, it was full of sinfulness, and then the institution that was created by God, which was marriage, which was a relationship between a man and a woman that creates a family that is a picture of the gospel. And so these verses are a great example of how we always have to dig deeper into what is Scripture really saying, and to not give in to the biases of our Western eyes, and to realize that if we understand and study what God is saying through us in Scripture, that we will find that it's always the right way, it's always a peaceful way, it's always a hopeful way. And so, just like with the slavery in 1 Peter, we have to take that same approach to everything else. Have a great day.